All right, hello again. This time we're looking at Algebra 2 IXL Skill D8. It's writing equations of lines, which is an incredibly important skill. So definitely one we want to remember. I've got some useful formulas for you here. And while you're writing those down, because they're good to have on hand, I do want to remind you that when you're doing these skills, your goal is an 85 or better. But once you reach an 85, if you're like, that's good enough for me, then just stop, close the program, it remembers your score. But if you want to get a 95, keep going until you're comfortable. You do not have to get 100. So do what you need to do what you feel comfortable with, and then just close the program and it'll save it for you. So we've got some formulas for slope. You should also remember that slope is rise over run. And we've got point slope form. So given a slope and an ordered pair x1, y1, you can plug it into point slope form. And so we use point slope form a lot. So when we're given a point and a slope, we use point slope form. And then what you can do is just simply distribute. When you have your stuff plugged into point slope form, distribute and combine like terms, and then you're going to land in slope intercept form, which is what the skill today is going to ask you to do. I do want to remind you that you do need to show work when you're doing IXL. So I created my own little whiteboard using a sheet protector and a piece of paper. And so I can use my own personal expo marker and show my work on this piece of paper. And it's kind of nice. You don't have to use a ton of paper to do all these problems, but it does require you actually doing some work. Of course, regular paper works just fine, even your notebook from school. Just do the work in your notebook. That would be totally fine. So here we go. Let's do a couple problems just to remember how this works. We've done this before. It was from a long time ago. So this is definitely review. Example 1, find the equation of the line in slope-intercept form given the following. So we are passing through the point 210, and it has a slope of 5. And so what we have here with this information is we have a point. This is the x1 and the y1, and the slope of 5, meaning that m is equal to 5. And since we're given a point and the slope, we're going to use point slope form. So I'm going to write down my formula. Y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. And so we're going to plug in. The 10 for the y1. We're going to plug in the 2 for the x1. And our 5 goes in place of the m. So we're going to have y minus 10 equals 5 times the quantity x minus 2. And then watch your signs. If this was a negative 2, we would do x minus a negative 2, and that's going to change the sign to a plus. So watch those negatives. Same thing over here. If it was a negative 10, it'd be y minus a negative 10. Minus a negative is really plus. All right, so once you've plugged in your slope and your ordered pair, then we can go ahead and distribute. 5 times x is 5x, and 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. I'm going to bring down my y minus 10. And then I just need to isolate the y. So I'm going to add the 10 to the other side so that the y is by itself. So we get y equals 5x, negative 10 plus 10. Oh, well, that's 0. You could put 5x plus 0, but probably we don't really need the plus 0. And we're just going to have y equals 5x. And so in in IXL, you would need to put in this whole equation. You can't just put 5x, it won't accept that answer. So you do need to put y equals 5x when you submit your answer in IXL. The other thing that we could do is we could actually check this equation pretty easily by going to the graphing menu. And so you go to y equals, and I'm just going to type in 5x. And you can do the same thing in your Casio, going to the menu and graphing menu. And then I'm going to do a zoom standard. So a standard window. And in the Casio, it's the viewing window. It's a second function. So zoom 6, and I get a standard window. And I can see it's a very steep slope, but I want to check and just make sure that it passes through the point 210. And I can do that pretty easily because I have an x value of 2 and a y value of 10. And I can use the trace button and just type in 2 and hit enter, and it tells me the output is 10. You can see Tinkerbell way up there. 210 is the ordered pair. So I know this equation has a great passes through that point. We are pretty sure that that's the right equation. All right, another one here. We have this point, 8, 5, and again, they're giving me the equation for the slope, m equals 0. That's telling me that the slope is 0. Slope is 0. So again, since I have a point and the slope, I'm going to use point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. And I'm going to go ahead and plug in my ordered pair. The x1 is 8. The y1 is 5. And in place of m, we're plugging in a 0. So I'm going to have y minus 5 equals 0 times the quantity x minus 8. Again, I can distribute if I want to. 0 times x is 0x. 0 times negative 8 is 0. Really, 0 times anything is just 0. So really, I have y minus 5 is equal to 0. I still can go in the same process here and just isolate the y. So I'm going to go ahead and add 5 to both sides. And so I get y equals 5. And this is the equation of the line that passes through the point 8, 5 and has a slope of 0. A slope of 0 is just a horizontal line. The slope is 0 because it's not rising or falling. It's just flat. It has 0 increase or 0 decrease. And so it's just a flat line. And the equation of any horizontal line is always y equals some number. And in this case, it's the 5. Whatever the y equals. Last one. Here, we're given 2 points. So we have the point 8, negative 8, and 0, negative 7. So given 2 points that the line passes through, we need to find the slope first. And so we can take these points and actually calculate the slope. The formula for finding slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so that's going to be y2 is negative 7 minus y1, which is right here, and that is minus a negative 8. Be careful with those negatives. Over x2 is 0 minus x1, so minus 8. Again, you would want to clean that double negative up. We don't like to see that. Negative times negative is really positive. 0 minus 8. So negative 7 plus 8 is 1. 0 minus 8 is negative 8. And so we end up having a slope of negative 1/8. Now I can choose either point. And I could choose the one that has lots of 8s. That would be fine. Or I could choose the one with the 0. And that probably would work even better. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to use this point and this slope, and I'm going to plug it in now to point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. So again, my job, I'm taking this point and plugging in it for x1 and y1. It doesn't matter what numbers you use there, knowing it's just going to go here and here. And then my slope of negative 1/8 goes in for m. So I have y minus a -7 is equal to -1/8 quantity x minus the 0. Oh, I guess that's supposed to be blue. There we go. All right. Again, you've got double negatives. You shouldn't really see that ever. So we can just change that to y plus 7 instead. -1/8 quantity x minus 0. Do I need to write the x minus 0? You don't have to. It's fine. But just because you're used to certain procedures, I'm going to go ahead and distribute. -1/8 times x is -1/8 x. Easy. -1/8 times -0 is 0. Any number times 0 is 0. And again, I don't really have to write that, so I'm going to leave it off now. But I can go ahead and isolate the y, -7 from both sides. That goes away so that we get y all by itself equals -1/8 x. 0 minus 7 is -7. So this is your equation we could type into IXL. And you'll notice that it is now in slope-intercept form, where this is the M and the B, which is also known as the y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis. And if I wanted to check this graph, I could really easily. I'm going to use my Casio this time. So I'm going to go to the menu and go to the graphing menu. I'm going to delete those equations that I've got in there. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and type in my -1/8 times my x minus 7. And I'm going to draw that. Ew, that's a bad window. I don't like that window, so I'm going to go to viewing window. You can see it here in yellow. On the TI, that'd be zoom. So I'm going to do shift viewing window, and this right here in the middle is a regular standard window. So F3 resets to a standard window. And I can exit and draw now. So we see, well, that didn't graph right at all. Okay, let me go back. Oh, see what it did there? It added in parentheses at the bottom. I don't want to do that. Let me retype that. That's the wrong way to type that. We want to make sure this isn't the fraction is -1/8. And the x gets put on top. So I'm going to have to be specific, I guess, with my Casio. Didn't realize that. So I put my fraction in parentheses times x and then subtract 7, and I can draw that. Oh, that's better. And we also have trace on the Casio. It's also in yellow, so I'm going to do shift trace. And you can see I have the point 0, -7 right off the bat. And I can also type in an x value. So I have an x value of 8, so I'm going to type in 8 and hit enter. And we see the output at -8, 8, -8. So we go through both points, then that is exactly the equation of the line. It's perfect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that should be good enough for you for practice with skill D8 on IXL. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.